Welcome to part 2 of the Premier League preview, brought to you by Sportsbet.io. Do like, comment, share and subscribe and get your latest previews for the Premier League, football across Europe, also the Champions League, NFL and NBA. If you want part 1, you can go and have a look at the guys' thoughts regarding the big games for Matchday 13 of the Premier League. Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea against Aston Villa and Man United against Everton. In part 2 right now, we're going to be looking at every other game in the Premier League, pulling up our score predictions, looking back at the score predictions for Matchday 12, who came on top, was it Mel's or Robbo, and also looking at this week's trebles as well. We've got a Friday night fixture in the Premier League. It's a bit of a South Coast derby. It's Brighton at home to Southampton. Prices in this one at time of recording, Brighton are 1.41, Southampton are 7.2, 5.1 for the tie. If you want goals, then you have to watch Brighton. Only one of their last 8 Premier League games have been under 2.5 goals. In Southampton, 6 away games in the Premier League, they have lost the first half in 5 of them. I am coming to you first, Paul, on this one. Brighton against Southampton. Thoughts and score prediction, please?
Southampton have just not been good enough. They've just not scored enough goals. Seen them a couple of times this season. You look at the attempts that they've had on target on the goals. Scoring goals has literally been the problem. They played at Wolves. They dominated the first half. And it's a game they ended up losing. Played 11, won 1, drawn 1, lost 9. Bottom of the league. That was before last weekend. Got beat by Liverpool. 34 shots on target from 113 shots. 30% of their shots hit the target, which is why they struggle scoring goals. Defensively susceptible. McCarthy last week in goal didn't cover himself in glory. Ramsdale will be a big miss for them after he's had his operation on a finger. Just can't see them keeping a clean sheet, which is where they're going to struggle. They don't score and they're letting goals, which is why they are bottom of the league. Minus 15 goal difference. And that's only going to get worse for them going to Brighton on Friday night. I think Brighton start the Premier League ACCA weekend with a win. I think it'd be comfortable for the home side. I like what he's done with them. I think he's changed them subtly. I think the way that they play, there's still a good watch. And again, Brighton have dug up a rough diamond with a manager. It looks like he's going to be good.
Yeah, they keep doing it, don't they, Brighton? What's your score prediction for this one, buddy?
Let's go 3-0 Brighton.
The last couple of scorelines between these two sides have been 3-1. Brighton have won both 3-1. Actually, this is a fixture where you tend to get both teams score more times than not. Both teams have scored in the last 7 head-to-head meetings, but when you look back, you're looking at a very different Southampton side in the Premier League to the one that we've got now. So 3-1 home victory. You said 3-0, actually, didn't you? You're not giving 3-0. Yeah, no goal for Southampton in this one. What about you, Miles? Are you going for a comfortable home victory for Brighton?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel a bit sorry for the Southampton fans because they're watching a style of football. They're not having it at all. The ball went back to the goalkeeper at one point against Liverpool and just booted it into Liverpool's half. The fans cheered it. They're sick of what they're watching. It's awful to watch. They're an awful team in the Premier League. The score suggests it was close. It wasn't. Southampton were nowhere near it against Liverpool. Liverpool were camped in the half for 12 minutes before they got the winning goal. Southampton didn't even have a kick in Liverpool's half. Terrible to watch Southampton. Don't like watching them. Bank at home. Brighton got away with it last week against Bournemouth, 2-1. Rode the luck at times, but they are miles better than Southampton. This is going to be a painful away day for Southampton. Brighton 4, Southampton 0.
Oh, you've gone for a goal more. You've gone for a battering for Brighton. Just quick mention for Tyler Dibbling, by the way, who's 18 for Southampton, who looked truly phenomenal against Liverpool. And that crossfield pass that led to Southampton's second, you're like, who's this guy? And also fair play for being 18 and the low socks as well. I like that. There's a confidence about Tyler Dibbling that I really like. Right, we'll move on to Brentford against Leicester. This is a 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Brentford are 1.66. They currently have the best home form in the Premier League and scored the most goals at home as well in their home form. Leicester, tough place for them to go. Managerless at the moment. 4.8 for Leicester, 4.2 for the tie. The last 3 Premier League games at Brentford have all been over 4.5 goals. That tells its story. If you want goals, I said watch Brighton. Also watch Brentford. I'm coming to you first, Neil. Your thoughts and score prediction, please.
All over the home win. All over for a home banker, yeah. Brentford had a man sent off, played with 10 men against Everton. Majority that's been overturned, so we can play this weekend. Yeah, you look at Brentford and think, fancy them. Surprised Leicester sacked Steve Cooper, I have to say. They've not been in the relegation zone. You know, out of the 3 promoted, they have done the best. Clearly, the players aren't happy, and I've gone to the board and gone, we want to change. They've got that change. I don't think the managerial appointment will come in time for this one. Talking about Van Nistelrooy, aren't they? Has he been made? I don't think he has been made appointed yet. So, yeah, I think Leicester suffer a heavy defeat in this one. I've got Brentford to win 3-0.
Under 3.5 goals. That's very unlike Brentford at home. It's a bit harsh, isn't it, on Steve Cooper? If you just look at who Leicester have lost to in the Premier League so far this season, home to Aston Villa, well, that's Aston Villa, away at Arsenal, home to Forest. I think it's that hurt them. But Forest were riding high. You know, they're top 5, top 6 in the Premier League when they went to Leicester. They've lost away at Man United and lost at home to Chelsea. And on the back of that, he's been sacked. It's not like they've lost back-to-back games against the likes of Southampton, of where they won, of course, and Wolves, etc., etc. It does seem a bit harsh from the outset. Paul, your thoughts on Brentford against Leicester? Thoughts and score prediction, please.
Well, I think the thing with Steve Cooper is the Nottingham Forest, isn't it? I think that stigma was always going to be there with the Leicester fans. He was going to have to win every game or win the majority of his games to win him over, because if he wasn't, that was a stick that was going to be used to beat him with for a long time. But the Forest connections, but like you say, what's the expectation this year is to stay in the Premier League. I think there's, you know, you look at the recent history of Leicester winning the FA Cup, winning the Premier League, playing in the Champions League. There's a lot of teams that would take that and still be in the Premier League. So, yeah, I think there's the expectation and realisation probably needs to level off a little bit. It'll be interesting to see who the next manager is. They've got to get it right. Can't afford to drop out of the Premier League. But I like Brentford at home. I mean, they got the first away point from home, didn't they, last week against Everton, held on with 10 men. At home, they're a different side. Can't see Leicester keeping a clean sheet. Also can't see Brentford keeping a clean sheet. Both teams to score 3-1 Brentford.
Do you know what? In all of this, there's still no split opinion between you. You've gone for the exact same outcome in the game. You might be choosing.
Cause trouble, you're just looking for trouble, aren't you?
I like it. I like what you're doing. You're keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. I see what you're doing in this one. I will tell you, by the way,
score predictions. There's something needs to change.
I haven't yet got onto Crystal Palace from last week. Brentford against Leicester. I will tell you that the last 6 meetings between these two sides, which have been in the Premier League, Brentford have not won any. Again, different Leicester side. The last time Brentford beat Leicester was all the way back in 1939. I will not ask you who the goalkeepers were in that particular game. We'll move on to Crystal Palace against Newcastle United. Tough one to call, this one. 2.94 for Crystal Palace. This is a 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday as well. Newcastle are 2.32, 3.65 for the tie. Here's a stellar stat for Crystal Palace. This is amazing. Crystal Palace have scored more goals in their last 2 away games than they have in their last 5 home games. So Crystal Palace at home, not very good at all. Newcastle have only kept 4 clean sheets in the last 35 away games in the Premier League. Who did I go to first last time? I went to Neil first last time. Paul, your first pick, Crystal Palace against Newcastle.
Until Newcastle played West Ham on Monday night, I'd have said this was a Newcastle banker, the way that they're playing in Palace's home form. But, I mean, I think that blew a lot of people's acres apart at the weekend with West Ham going up there and winning. Didn't expect that, didn't see it. Palace off the back of a decent draw at Villa, lost at home to Fulham. Like you say, their home form's poor. Attacking wise, Palace, there's still questions for me. They bought a lot of attacking players, but he just hasn't got a tune. I think Mateta's got to play. He's got to play him every week and stick with him. He scored the goals at the end of last season, and he's a type of player that will get into a rhythm and he'll score goals. I think if he starts getting the best out of Mateta, play him up front as a 9, other side than Nketiah, but we've been playing him as a 10, playing him wide, playing him off Mateta, or as a 9. Mateta, for me, has got to play, and I think there is goals in this Palace side. This is probably the toughest one of the weekend to call. Like I said, before the West Ham game, I'd have been all over Newcastle. I'm going to go draw, 1-1.
This is the first game where I'm thinking
we're split because Mel's going to go Newcastle.
You could possibly be split, yeah. By the way, if you want a game of goals and drama, then this is not the one, as my granddad would say. If this was played at the end of my garden, I close the curtains. In the last 16 meetings, over 2.5 goals has only landed in 2 of the 16s. We've had 14 where it's been very low in goals as well. So, tough one. I agree with you. I think this is the toughest one to call. You've gone for a draw. Understandable. Neil, you're thinking score prediction, Crystal Palace, Newcastle.
All over the away win. Yeah, sorry to disappoint you there, Gav. I know you're a secret Palace fan. after calling them out last week. What a result that was to get a point at Aston Villa. Great result for them.
Yeah,
it was. You did know it. Yeah, you called that one. They haven't scored enough goals at home. Played 6, scored 3. That's a problem for them. Totally agree with Robbo. Mateta needs to be playing, the main man, to cause Newcastle problems. I just think there'll be a response from Newcastle. Turned over at home to West Ham. I'm expecting a response. There's too good of players that are playing for Newcastle not to go there and get the result. Really like Isak. I rate Isak as one of the best strikers in the league. He's had a couple of goals disallowed in recent games, one for Sweden, one for Newcastle. Gordon, Joe Linton. I just think there's enough there to go down there and get the result with a response. Callum Wilson's back fit as well. So I've got an away win and a 2-1 away win for Newcastle before they play Liverpool at home next week. That's a big game for them.
It is a big game. Newcastle, by the way, last time they won at Crystal Palace was back in 2020. Callum Wilson scored. It was 0-0 after 87 minutes. Newcastle won it by 2-0. That's the last time they won at Selhurst Park. Generally, as a rule between these two sides, it is the home side who tend to come out on top quite a lot, but you've gone for the away side. A split opinion, draw for Paul, and an away win for Neil. Right, I've got a question regarding this one. This is a belting question coming up. We're moving on to another 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. It is Nottingham Forest against Ipswich Town. Forest are 1.68. They'll deem this as a must-win. Ipswich are 5.1, 3.95 for the tie. After one defeat in 11 Premier League games, Forest come into this one having lost their last 2, and Ipswich have drawn 50% of their Premier League games, which is more than any other team. Neil, thoughts and score prediction, please.
Yeah. Ipswich more in form, unbeaten in 3. Forest have lost the last 2. Tough game, wasn't it, at Arsenal last week? No shame in getting beat there. They need to get back at it, Forest. You know, we always felt as though it was a bit unrealistic that they were going to stay in the top half of the division, despite a great start. But these are the games that expect to pick points up from. I like Ipswich. You know, out of the 3 teams that have been promoted, I think Ipswich are the best to watch. You know, they'll have a go. They're competitive. Again, last weekend against Manchester United, that was a decent point. So I fancy Ipswich to get something from this game. Really like Delap. I was going to say Rory Delap, but Liam hasn't got the long throw like his dad. But it'll be a handful for that Forest defence. I've got both teams to score. I fancy this to be a score draw. 1-1, 2-2. I'll go 1-1.
It's gone for 1-1. Forest in 7th. Have scored 15 goals this season. Ipswich in 18th have scored 13, so they're only 2 goals behind them. Before I ask my question, Paul, your thoughts? Are you also going for a tight tie between Forest and Ipswich, or are you picking a winner?
No, I'm going with the home team, purely on what they've done this season. Ipswich have struggled. Yes, they've always been in games. You know, you look at the games. They lost at home 2-0 to Everton, but all the other recent games they've been in, they beat Spurs 2-1. Drew the Man United draw, Brentford. There were one goal in the game. They're always there or thereabouts in games at the moment, Ipswich, but I do think this will be a tight affair. I'm going to go for a 1-0 to the Tricky Trees.
You're going for 1-0, a tight game. Of course, these teams have crossed paths quite a number of times in the Football League. The last meeting between these two sides at Forest won by 2 goals. As a rule, this is a game where the home side win. Forest have won the last 3 games at home to Ipswich. It has been almost 30 years to the day since Forest last played Ipswich in the Premier League. We're talking the 9th of December 1994. Forest won 4-1 that day. Can you tell me any of the Forest goal scorers?
Pierre Van Hooijdonk and Brian Roy.
Oh, like Roy was in my mind as well.
Yeah.
Scott Gemmell?
Oh, that's a belter. That's the first one. None of yours were in there, Paul. Scotty Gemmell is in there. I'm going to be honest. The others...
Stan Collymore?
Stan Collymore's in there. He's on a roll. One of them is linked to a Premier League superstar of today.
What do you mean linked? That's a really weird clue.
No, it's not. When I give you the answer, and if you think about it, there's a current Premier League superstar right now, and one of the goal scorers for Forest that day is linked to them.
Johnson.
No, but you're on the right lines.
Alfie Haaland didn't play for Forest, did he?
Alfie Inge Haaland did play for Forest, and he did score for Forest against Ipswich. There you are. And who's the other one? Because actually, the other goal scorer that day is possibly one of the biggest names at that time in English football. An England player, well-known England player, proper Lionheart.
Stuart Pearce.
Stuart Pearce is the right answer as well. So the goal scorer is that day. The one I thought you struggled on is Scotty Gemmell, and that's the first one you got, which impressed me the most. Yeah, Scotty Gemmell. So yeah, that was almost 30 years to the day since Forest played at home to Ipswich. Neil, you've gone for the draw. Paul, you've gone for the home win. Another split opinion. We move on to another 3 p.m. kickoff and an in-form Wolves side. Oh, I am a massive fan of Cunha, by the way. Wolves are 2.78. Bournemouth are 2.42. 3.65 for the tie. Wolves are unbeaten in their last 4 Premier League games. Their longest unbeaten run for just under a year. I also have another stellar Wolves stat. Wolves have scored 14 goals in their last 6 Premier League games. That's 6 more than Man City. That's 5 more than Arsenal. And that's 2 more than Liverpool. So if you want goals, Wolves are it. Bournemouth have won just 2 of their last. Bournemouth have won 2 of their last away games in the Premier League. They've not been on a good run of form at all. I think it's 2 of the last 10 or something like that for Bournemouth. Paul, I'm coming to you first. Your thoughts on Wolves Bournemouth?
Told you I like Wolves. Told you I like Gary O'Neill. Stick with him. Give him the time. You look at the run that they're on. They had a tough start to the season. We all say, you've got to play everyone at any point during the season. But they had a really tough run of fixtures. They've stuck with him and they're starting to get the rewards. Won at Fulham 4-1. I don't think anybody saw them winning 4-1. I mean, there was a sneaky feeling I had them up for a draw. But I think there's that shocked a few. Because Fulham are a good side, by the way. They're a good side at home. The win at home against Southampton off the back of the draw against Palace. They've turned the corner for me, Wolves. And as you say, Bournemouth are not in a good vein of form at the moment. Sat languishing, probably where you'd expect them, 13th. That's about where they are. That's Bournemouth for you. Wolves to win, 2-1. Continues, Gary O'Neill. Continue climbing the table.
I am quite a fan of Gary O'Neill as well. If Wolves win this one and results go their way, they could actually overtake Leicester and Everton and move up to 15th, which, if you look at the Premier League table just literally 3-4 weeks ago, is phenomenal. They are on an absolute up curve of Wolves. Neil, are you going for a home side win in this one, or are you going for Bournemouth, who won at Molineux last season?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm on the away here. And yeah, okay, Wolves' form has improved. I mean, that was some result that against Fulham. If Cunha's not playing all right, Nori, I'm thinking Wolves are definitely losing. Cunha is some player. What about his finish last week? Top bin. He is absolutely top quality. I think Wolves have got a job on their hands to keep hold of him. You know, I think people will be coming in, whether that's January at the end of the season. Things have improved. They're out of the relegation places, Wolves. I don't think they're a great side. I'm not convinced by them, I'll be honest. And I like Bournemouth. Really like what Bournemouth are about. Unlucky last weekend against Brighton. I think where Brighton can hurt Wolves is they can hurt them on the counter. I think Bournemouth have got good pace, they've got good attacking ability, and they'll have a go. Bournemouth won't go there and sit back. Bournemouth will have a go, and I think that's where they get a little bit of luck maybe they were missing last weekend. So I've got an away win. Yeah, I've got an away win for this. Both teams to score, Bournemouth to win 2-1.
We'll tell you that Bournemouth have won their last 2 games at Molineux by 1-0. The previous game, Wolves won at home to Bournemouth by 1-0. The last 3 games at Molineux between these two sides have finished 1-0 to the winner. If Wolves do win this one, they'll move 3 points behind Bournemouth. It is a remarkable run of form for the home side. We have got split opinions galore now between you two. Wolves win for Paul, Bournemouth win for Neil. Next up is a 5:30 kickoff on Sunday. We are talking West Ham against Arsenal. Prices at time of recording. West Ham are 7 for West Ham. They got battered at home by Arsenal last season. Arsenal are 1.46, 4.6 for the tie. In the last 8 Premier League games for West Ham, they've had a different result from the game before, so they are massively inconsistent, are West Ham. And after 4 Premier League games without a win, Arsenal beat Forest 3-0 in the last game. Arsenal scored as many goals against Forest in the Premier League as they had in the 4 previous games in the EPL. Neil, your thoughts and score prediction for West Ham Arsenal?
Odegaard's back for Arsenal. Arsenal are going to kick on. Yeah, absolutely. They've had that little dip. I think Arsenal kick on. You saw them in the Champions League. What a win that was. 5-1 away at Sporting. Big win last weekend against Forest. I don't see them having any problems this weekend against West Ham. Brilliant result for West Ham away at Newcastle. Yes, it was. Arsenal have a good record in recent years away at West Ham. West Ham's last home Premier League win against Arsenal was 2019. Declan Rice scored. Who was the manager for Arsenal? The last time that Arsenal lost a Premier League game at West Ham. Who was the Arsenal manager?
Unai Emery.
Was that too easy? Yeah, maybe it was. Okay, correct. Yes.
The disappointment in his voice is Really enjoyable. I like that.
But it shows how good a record they've had, going there. So I'm on Arsenal to win again. To keep this good form, Odegaard is key. Saka's been brilliant as well this season. A big win, 3-1 for the Gunners away.
They did absolutely smash West Ham last season. It is a stat for you. 50% of West Ham games at home so far this season, both team scores has landed in 50% of their home games. It is a place of goals. West Ham are a bit Spurs. If Spurs win a game, you're more likely to tip them to lose the next one. It's the kind of same with West Ham. Because West Ham won at Newcastle last time out, you're going, well, that's their one victory in 4. I'm more likely to oppose them this time. We're getting on to Spurs next. Your score prediction and thoughts in this one, please, Paul.
Don't ever compare West Ham and Spurs. You will not be thanked by either set of supporters.
I apologise.
In the same sentence. There is a lot of strong dislike between those two, and neither would like to be compared to the other one. But listen, I think he saved his job, Lopetegui, up at Newcastle. I thought these 2 games, you look at where they are, the games that they've got coming up, they've got Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth and Brighton after the Arsenal game. I think after the Newcastle game and the Arsenal game, that was going to be his big test, because the next 4 are very, very winnable for West Ham. Not so sure that they've turned the corner fully. Arsenal, put Sporting to the sword midweek, and they played really, really well midweek. Back at the home win against Forest. You look at the players, you see his team selection against Forest, the players that he left out on the bench. He's got a squad there, and he's got a strong squad now, and I can't see it being an issue for them going to the London Stadium. 3-0 Arsenal. Yeah,
you've both gone for a fairly routine, comfortable away win. For the away side, if such a thing is possible in the Premier League. They won 6-0 last season, as I mentioned. Yeah, West Ham against Arsenal. You've gone for both have gone for the away win in that one. Arsenal have scored 16 goals, by the way, in the last 5 Premier League games at West Ham. West Ham have scored 7 in 5, so it is generally been Arsenal winning and plenty of goals. And we move on to the final game of part 2. It is Spurs at home to Fulham, a London derby. Spurs after that wonderful win at Manchester City, and that is the most Spursy thing they've done. They lose at home to Ipswich, they lose away at Crystal Palace, they go to Man City and batter them by 4-0. 1.68 for Spurs. It is 4.4 for Fulham, 4.5 for the tie. Spurs have won 3 of the last 4 Premier League games. They've scored exactly 4 goals in those 3 victories as well. Fulham have failed to score in just 3 of their 15 EPL away games. So, with Spurs and their renowned inconsistency and sometimes not knowing what they're going to get, would it be a surprise if they do win away at Man City 4-0 and then drop points at home to Fulham, Paul? Would that just sum up Spurs in a couple of games?
You want the truth? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
No idea. That's what you get. Listen, they were brilliant last week against Manchester City. For the first time, changed the team up, played with Sarr and Basuma as 2 holding midfielders. They're a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more defensive-minded, got the goal and kept on going. But in the second half, I saw a defensive performance from Tottenham that I've not seen before this season. Orhan Postecoglou, as a unit, the midfielders sat in as a 5. Kulusevski, Son, Maddison sat in either side of Sarr and Basuma, and they said to Manchester City, go on then, break us down. He made intelligent substitutions. He brought on Brendan Johnson for the pace on the counter-attack. The way that they defended and then hit Man City on the break in the second half, that's not how I've seen Tottenham play. I've seen them play against Brighton this season, go in 2-0 up at half-time, come out in the second half, be all over the place, get exposed and get beat. But that wasn't the case at Manchester City. Okay, Manchester City maybe not the force that they have been of late, but they're the Premier League champions. They've been the champions of Europe at some points. And the team there, you can't take that achievement away from Tottenham going there and playing the way that they did. But as you rightly say, that was coming off the back of a home defeat against Ipswich, with no disrespect to Ipswich, and a defeat away at Galatasaray. The big thing for Tottenham, Vicario, he's obviously had surgery on his ankle. He's out. Vicario's out. Romero possibly out. Van der Ven still out. Richarlison's still out. The injury list is growing. I was worried about going into the weekend with Dragusin and Ben Davis, but I thought they were both excellent. Interesting to see how he plays. I think James Maddison in that number 10 role made a big call leaving Brendan Johnson out as well. Pushed Kulusevski up on the right-hand side, played Maddison in the 10 role. Whether he sticks to that, Maddison for me is a better player when he's playing in his best position. He's not a deep line midfielder in a 4-3-3. He's a number 10. If he sticks to that formation with that personnel, Spurs win it for me. But like I say, if I looked at the telly on Sunday night and saw that Fulham had nicked an away win, you wouldn't be surprised. But as I leave you today, I'm getting on a train and going to London to watch them play Roma tonight. So that's another interesting game because he switched the squad up and the team up dramatically in Europe. He's changed and put a lot of youngsters in. Fulham sat in 10th. I'm going to go with my team. A comfortable home win, 3-0. Even a clean sheet I'm giving them.
Yeah, gone for a clean sheet. Fair play to Vicario, by the way, just played on with a broken ankle. I mean, that is absolute respect. You saw no sign of him being in any discomfort, and then you go, oh yeah, by the way, I broke my ankle. Fair play, my friend. If I get a paper cut or a splinter, you bloody well know about it. One of the problems for Spurs, by the way, Spurs have scored first in 3 of their last 4 away games, but at home, they've conceded the first goal in each of the last 5 home games. So they just can't inch their noses in front at Spurs. So when they fall behind, they feel the pressure a little bit and it turns a little bit negative. And maybe that's why they're just massively inconsistent. But you've gone for a 3-0 home win, Paul. I will tell you that Spurs have got a good record against Fulham, winning 11 of the last 14 meetings. Neil, are you gone for a home win in this one?
No, not at all. I think we'll see a Spursy result. They are top scorers in the Premier League. They're good to watch going forward. Paul's just listed all the injury problems they have defensively. The goalkeeper, 2 centre-halves. And again, they got away with it early on against City. Should have been 2-0 down. And I don't think Spurs would have won the game had they been 2-0 down. But it was a good performance after that. So they have a threat going forward, no doubt about that. Fancy them to score. I like Fulham. Not so much away from home, although they have won 2 away games already this season, which probably better than last season. I think they got 2 all last season. So yeah, I think Fulham will get something. Good side. They'll get chances against that Spurs defence. So I'm going to go for both teams to score and a 1-1 draw.
I think last time these teams drew 1-1 was all the way back in 2021. The draw is not something that happens between these two sides. Do you want an off-the-cuff question that I've just found right now? The last time Fulham won at Spurs was back in 2013. Who scored the goal for Fulham?
I'd go Berbatov.
Oh, that's really annoying that you got that straight away. That's really... And I'm not going to ask you. I'm only going to play with Paul in future. Really
who was it? Who was it?
You know who it was. Right. Dimitar Berbatov, who of course came to English football by making a move to Spurs. Whatever your bets are, please do gamble responsibly. Those are the guys' predictions for Matchday 13. We're now going to look back to the Matchday predictions for round 12 and see how the guys fared. So the story here is at the start of the season is that Paul raced into a 4-0 lead. The way the game works is you get 1 point if you get a correct result, if you tip a winner or a draw, but you also get 3 points if you absolutely nail on the score line. Paul raced into a 4-0 lead. Neil came back to 4-3, and then for seemingly an eternity you kept drawing for about 3 or 4 consecutive weeks, and then Neil finally levelled it up. And then last week, you got your nose in front. You now lead 5-4. It is a titanic turnaround. It was fairly tight, though. It was the Chelsea correct score that tipped it for you. Mel's, you got 5 points last week and just 3 for Paul. So Paul is now losing by 5-4. How are you feeling, Paul?
Awful. A poor performance from both of us last week. That was pitiful. I hope nobody followed our bets last week, because if you did, you're going to be skinned.
Damning, he's damned himself. Must do better is what's coming out from Paul there. But you lead, Neil. You've taken the lead.
Yeah, no surprise. Maybe it's took this long to get in front. You ground it out in the end. Wasn't pretty last week. Sometimes you've got to find a way to win, and I did. That Leicester penalty was beautiful. Get in there, Leicester. 2-1. Sometimes
it's just about the result and not the performance, and that was the case last week. Your trebles, by the way, Newcastle, Villa and Man United is what you went for, Neil, and Villa and Man United let you down. And Paul, you went for Chelsea and Liverpool and Newcastle. And I suppose when you got to Newcastle on Monday night against West Ham, you're thinking, hello, my treble's looking good, and then West Ham threw a spanner in the works and won, so your trebles didn't win. So let's have a look at the trebles for this week. I'll start with you, Mels. Who are you going for?
Newcastle to respond. I think that's a risky one. So the price will be good there away at Crystal Palace. Newcastle, Arsenal. Yeah, I think they're kicking on. And the other one is Brentford at home.
I will tell you that we do put 10 USDT on your trebles. You've already got money in the bank. The money will be donated at the end of the season to a charity. We're yet to decide which one. You've got 73 USDT in the bank already. This is 5.62, which will win you 56 USDT just over, which if it lands, you'll mean you'll have 129 USDT in the bank if this lands. You're going for Brentford, Arsenal and Newcastle. And Paul, who are you going for this week?
A little bit more value this week. I think we should kick it off on Friday night with a Brighton win. So Brighton, Wolves to beat Bournemouth, and there's your value, and Man United. Brighton, Wolves, Man United. See,
I also like the Wolves, which is probably a bit of a jinx on that one. I apologise beforehand. Brighton, Wolves, Man United, 6.4 USDT. So it is a slightly bigger treble, which if it lands, of course, means you'll bank 60, just over 60 USDT into the treble pot. And that is it for part 2 of the Premier League preview, brought to you by sportsbet.io. Thank you for watching. Please do like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you, Mels, enjoyed that very much. Thank you, Paul, as well. Always gamble responsibly, and we are back next time for a look at the Premier League.